Hello, hello. Welcome back to our channel. My name is Mo from Very Park Gallery. This is Christine O'Donnell, the founder of Beacon Gallery in Boston. And today we're talking about AI art.
Yes, we are. Hello, Mo.
In the last 6 months, a lot of things has happened with AI art, with the whole digital art community. People were protesting AI artists to win competition. Newspapers are starting using AI artists instead of real artists, and so people were upset. Some people defended AI art as the future of art and illustration. Some hated it. So, what do you say?
Oh, there's so much to say. I mean, we can talk about art, but in a way, it's the whole idea that AI can create in general. And in a way, the visual realm is just one way which artificial intelligence is creating in the world in general. And I think that really has the population shook. And this idea that we can't necessarily tell the difference between what has been created by the human hand and what has been created by a computer is very concerning to a lot of people, and that's for the general population. And then there's a whole other set of concerns for those who are the original creators, such as artists or writers or coders, for instance. I think today we're mostly going to be focusing on the artists and maybe art appreciators.
I find that there's an interesting contrast. So online, we have an artist community, and mainly the artists who are going online, sharing their art, digital artists, emerging artists, and they were super concerned about where art will go from here, from the stable diffusion from today, the AI art, like we open the Pandora box. On the other hand, my local friends, painters, sculptors, they're not concerned at all. And when I talk about AI art, they're like, yeah, what exactly are you talking about? They're not concerned. So do you also see this like traditional artists and, oh, sorry, my cat, go away.
Cats are always welcome in videos. They always make videos better.
No, not that. Censored.
Well, here, let me jump in while you're dealing with your
Yes.
cat. I would say that yes, things kind of go in two different directions. I would say that people who are more involved in the digital side of creation are probably a little bit more concerned. I think that one of the big concerns that I've been seeing, at least on social media, is the way in which AI machine learning has been trained. Essentially, AI machine learning has been trained to create art by scraping the internet for other images, which means that all the art that exists out there, copyrighted or not, or the photographs that you and I have taken, are being used and fed into these programs to create a form of artificial intelligence that can then put out new types of artwork. A lot of people feel very uncomfortable with the idea that something that they own has potentially been used for these purposes. And unfortunately, there's not a lot that you can do once your art is out there on the internet to keep this from happening. But I know that's like, at the very base, that's been a lot of people's concerns. And then you have like the other end of it. It's like, so first of all, people are concerned that they've enabled this, right? And then it's like, well, but then where is it going? Is it also going to keep me from being able to be successful as an artist? And there's a very interesting story that happened on Reddit this week where someone uploaded a digital piece of artwork on I believe it was the art forum, and it was criticized and taken down. And this was something that a digital artist made. And they said, this looks too much like AI art. So we don't want it up here. Even though it was real, even though it wasn't real. I mean, like, even though it was made by a human hand, they didn't want to have anything to do with it. Where does that leave us? I don't have any good answers for that, but it's like we're getting into all of these thorny issues with the introduction of machine learning creating a new type of art.
Okay, I don't want to be the bad guy here.
Oh, be the bad guy. Come on.
Minnie, go away.
You're having to be the bad guy for your cat, so be it in this conversation too.
I will be the bad guy. So When artists are training to become a professional artist, they use a lot of old masters. They copy, okay? They copy using reference, using photography, using many copyrighted content. Like you can see here, an artist was complaining about AI using internet content without consent, copyrighted things. At the same time, he was also using video games and animes to train his art as well. Why is it okay for an artist to train with copyright? Artists can train with copyrighted content, but computers cannot?
I see exactly what you mean. I think that when people feel threatened, that's kind of, we all want to retreat to our own turf, whether that's right or not. But I totally agree that that's kind of where, in a way, any artist is standing on the shoulders of giants. And that most likely includes machine learning art.
So where does it divide? Is there a way to justify? Let's say I show the process, the entire thought process, sketches or corrections on the canvas or certain things. Because you have to prove this is not done by AI, at least not entirely.
Well, do you? I mean, so here's the thing. Like, I see a couple of different ways that AI could potentially be involved in the future of art. But one thing that I think it's important to understand is that there has to be, as of now, a human intermediary, right, in all of this. And so AI might be like outputting all of these images, but not all of them are good. There's a lot of really bad stuff that AI is still putting out there. I mean, if you've ever had a portrait of yourself made and you have the eyes going in two different directions or things like that, like, there's some really bad stuff that they're putting out there. We are really only seeing as examples, or the things that are winning awards are only really the best images that are being selected by a human curator for our consumption and for, are being proffered for these awards. And these are the things that are being like printed or being uploaded or being selected. That's one way in which I think it's important to understand that like AI isn't putting all of this out there, because if they were, we would be overwhelmed by a lot of substandard images. Let's put it that way. And in terms of like us as humans having to like prove that our art is human art,
Original.
in a way, the AI art is original. It's just not being made by human. That's what's key to understand here. Humans make derivative art all the time. Let's be honest, right? How is this different than someone, making some pop art with Charlie Brown in it? It's one of these things where we have to kind of separate out. That's why I think that AI art belongs in its own genre that's separate. What is, I think, going to happen is that there's going to be different ways where, like, someone is going to print this sort of thing onto like a canvas and then paint over it.
Like projectors.
Yeah, projectors like one example, and then and the lines are going to be blurred when it comes to like AI assisting humans. People aren't like forthcoming with that information. And that's when things are going to get really complicated, in my opinion, because when you have someone who takes like a canvas and prints out like a giclée of an AI piece, and then there's something called like embellished giclées, which is when an artist goes back over them and paints with like acrylic paint over the giclée. And so it kind of gives the look of an original canvas, even though it might only have a few highlights here and there. If someone were to do that and just paint over, it becomes like a paint by numbers sort of thing. And who's saying like, okay, well, but who's the artist here? Or, you could almost say like, well, this is my original work of art because it's original. No one's like, it was an AI who created it and they can't copyright it, as we, I think, mentioned before we started talking, because only humans
Yes.
can copyright things, right? So then it becomes the copyright of the human who painted over it, right? And who's ever know
Yes.
unless you scrape it off.
Or even if they project, then you cannot even know.
Then how is that different, right?
Right. So if a banana on the wall can be sold for 150,000 I mean, to be fair, anything can be sold. So it's just about the name of the artist then.
Yes. So for me, one of the things that I think is key for all of this is that the artists who get involved and potentially celebrities are going to be what ends up driving the AI art market. So if we talk about the human intermediary, wouldn't it be interesting to see if a gallery or a group or something like that is like, well, these are the 10 AI images that Kim Kardashian chose. And then all of a sudden, that's what people want to purchase is a limited edition that's based on something that she chose, for instance. I mean, in a way, there has to be a cachet that comes from somewhere. And if it comes from like the historical nature of it, this is the first, or if it comes from the art historical nature of it, here's an artist with a proven track record who's getting involved, a digital artist or a visual artist. Or if you get into kind of like the American celebrity worship, I think all of those could end up, bringing it more into the mainstream art market as something that people would see as a viable product.
It has been decades since, well, the conceptual art, an artist is no longer required to go through 5 years fine art training, follow a master for many years to have a solid skill. Is no longer required. So in any case, using AI to generate images or use a camera or any other item, gadget, device would have been the same.
Yes and no. I mean, I think what is important is you go back to that idea of like standing on the shoulder of giants. I think there is for us, we'll say kind of like in the West, that idea of kind of knowing what's come before you so that you're not accidentally reproducing something and so that you are kind of like pushing the boundaries is something important. And so certainly you don't need to go to art school. And I would encourage a lot of people to think twice before they do so if it's just going to be about, being a bit lost or trying to refine a technique. I mean, there's certainly reasons to go to art school, and then there are reasons that one should think twice before going to art school. But you're always looking for like what's a new approach to something, and how are you expressing yourself in a way that's never been done before. That's really what a lot of galleries and the art market in general is looking for. But the thing is, if you think about that, a machine learning isn't really expressing itself, right? It's all based on what it's already learned and what it's seen in the past. It can try to put those things together in a new way to anticipate what people might want based on input and based on what it's already seen, but it will never have that spark of human creativity.
I saw a comment online. An artist criticized AI generated art. AI art has no soul. And I wanted to laugh so much because I think I have no soul because I was brought up as a communist Chinese. So we were taught we're just flesh and bones. When we die, we get burned, we get cremated, obligatory, and we become ashes. There's nothing after death. There's nothing on the other side. So I don't think I have, let's say, soul. I have never seen a soul. So I'm very ignorant about spirituality.
But I think that's like the difference though between how that word soul is being used is that kind of like that spark of life, right? Versus something, let's say, spiritual, in that sense of like you as an animate human, right, have the ability to react in a way that a AI never would.
So we have misfortunes in our lives, we go through hardships, and we collect data. We are trained in our life to have different perspective, different experience. Therefore, we are each individual unique AIs in a way, right? And more.
We are always going to pass the Turing test, I like to imagine. Do you know what the Turing test is? Named for Alan Turing.
Yes.
And so all us human beings we hope would pass the Turing test. We're still looking for the AI that can.
Maybe I can't because there's so many times, the captcha, the when you say, "Are you a
Oh,
robot?"
none of us can pass those.
Oh, what is that?
We're all failing it. Yes, all of us live these incredibly unique lives and bring to any sort of creative pursuit all of those experiences, for better or for worse. And certainly not all of us are going to choose to express ourselves in this one media. So right now, for the most part, I would say that AI art is limited to, we'll say, pixels in the digital world. It won't always be. And I mean, I'm speaking now with some knowledge, but not like the most in-depth knowledge of cutting edge AI creativity. I imagine that, for instance, 3D printing sculptures is something that could easily, right, come to pass very
The
quickly.
robotic arms for operations, for surgery.
I think that like my desire to be operated on by AI is limited right now, but I still like the human surgeon to be kind of like telling them what to do as opposed to the AI deciding what needs to be done. At least until they figure out that like both your pupils are supposed to be facing the same direction. I don't want anyone doing like eye surgery on me and coming out with my eyes facing in two different directions.
They're not good
Um,
with fingers, so imagine that.
that too, right?
Yeah.
Like one, you come out with only like one ear. None of the art AI should be performing surgery on the human body as of right now. We have so many different media that we can also interact with. There are fiber artists and there are, potters and painters and ceramicists. And that's another thing is that, and even painters, is that we have to remember that this is like one media in which I think we feel very concerned because of how much our life is lived in a digital sphere. And so we see it online just like we see so much of art that we place online, but so much of art actually lives in a digital world. Unless someone prints it, it doesn't live in a digital world. And so we should take heart in that as well.
That reminds me of records. Before it was vinyl records, CD, tape, and now it's all streaming. We don't even have it on our discs. So there will be new business models. There are already new business models. If you
Absolutely.
go online, go on YouTube, and you see some YouTubers would say, I made X amount of money this month using free AI generated images printed on t shirts,
Sure.
let's say.
I mean, and I would say that almost the people who need to be the most concerned may be graphic designers rather than artists.
Now I want to bring a subject, maybe it's a bit controversial. Many digital artists, the main complaint when they see AI is that AI is going to stop me from becoming a great artist. But the problem is that in the fine art world, digital artists are not even accepted as artists in the first place. So it's not so much about the AI ruining their potential career. It's our limited mind, it's our fixed mindset in the traditional art world that is blocking them. Would you agree? Because you work with mainly brick and mortar artists. I don't know even how to describe this. You have human art, you have AI art, you have digital art, you have manual human. I don't even know.
There's probably a market for all of it in terms of like digital art and more traditional fine artists like painting and sculpture, but it's definitely a fraction of the market. It really depends. I would say that one of the issues is that digital art is inherently reproducible. As a result, you're never going to have, unless someone says, okay, this is, one of one, like you're kind of just taking that on someone's word, right? And so people are often looking for like original pieces of artwork. Some people like prints, but it's one of these things where you get into the ability to kind of like have the original piece. Is it archival as well? Because the printing methodology for anything that's digital hasn't really been around long enough for us to know whether these guarantees that are usually about 100 years long will actually be lived up to. We like to think yes. But again, these are some of the same concerns that people had with photography. So when we originally had painting and then photography came into play, people were like, this is not art. Why would we want to collect this? This is just pictures of what's happening every day. And then you would have people like Henri Cartier-Bresson who really showed the artistry of what you could do with a camera. I think that there are probably people out here, hopefully, who will watch this video and maybe who can comment with some of the people who are making digital art that are showing what is possible in the media itself. I've seen some exceptional things online, but I can't necessarily name who those artists are. Some of them are fixed images, some of them have animation involved. We could go down a whole rabbit hole right now about NFTs, but I think it's important to understand that an NFT is completely different from digital art. One really has nothing to do with the other. If you happen to sell an NFT that is related to, let's say, a JPEG or a animation, that just happens to be like that's just happenstance. So we're not going to talk about NFTs right now.
We are living in a very interesting time. So,
Right. I mean, for digital art, there's so many different things that can be done. We're not talking about bored apes here. That's not the example of like, high-end digital art that we're talking about. I'm thinking of some amazing things that I've seen. But how people collect them and where they end up in the, let's say, in the physical world on a large scale remains to be seen. In terms of like the time scale, I mean, we're still really right at the beginning of it. Digital artists probably need to take heart, but also know that like most artists don't find success in their own time, unfortunately. It's just a long, long, frustrating process to be accepted and loved as an artist.
more than 100 years ago, when photography, when camera was invented, of course, there were artists who reacted to the photography, the emergence of cameras. And now that we have AI, we have NFT, we have a whole load of new ways to make and sell art, what do you think how our artists today will react? Like looking back.
Will there be the same acceptance of AI art? If the AI overlords have not zapped all our brains, if Skynet has not taken over, that's a Terminator reference for those of you who don't know. I think it will be both similar and different. I think that digital art by, I like to think human artists will probably have found its niche. I think that the support of machine learning within the arts and within our culture in general, it's going to play a role that we probably can't quite imagine yet. And so there's going to be some sort of shift between now and then that, like, for instance, it will be doing all of the scaffolding for us, for instance. Artists are going to say, make me, 10 different pictures of a woman drinking a cup of coffee. And then the AI will do it and it'll project it and it'll be like, okay, I want that one. And that's what I'm going to project and paint. And we will just assume that that's how everyone makes art, that no one would start with like their imagination or something like that. And it would be the same thing for like a person writing a newspaper article, that they would have the progeny of Chat GPT would write the initial draft of their article about President whoever, and that they would go through and then rewrite it and tweak it until it was in their voice and was what they wanted to put out there. And so I think in some way it will probably get integrated into our culture because there's nothing our culture likes better than to do things the easy way. So
like the calculator. I went down to grab a croissant just in the neighborhood, and the boy, who I believe is 18, 19-year-old, the son of the baker, gave me change. And I gave him 10 euro note of 10, and the croissant is like €1, and he actually picked up the calculator to calculate how much he should give me change.
Exactly.
And I was, and he's like,
Yep.
10 minus 1 equals 9. And he was calculating 9, gave it to me with a big smile. I'm like, what? What is happening? And also GPS. I mean, if we travel somewhere we
Oh,
have never been, GPS, right? So,
that is a perfect example because now integrate GPS no matter what into my daily commute because I don't want to have the nasty surprise of finding myself in traffic. And so even though I know my route perfectly, let's say home from work, I still will calculate it and still keep it on because I want to see, is there traffic before I get onto the road? And then I want to see, is there a speed trap there because it shows that. And then I just, end up leaving it on. I think that's the way in which our brains are starting to kind of like rely on technology in ways that do make our lives better, but also take a little bit of that rigor that I would say previous generations have had, and that we may have even had earlier in our lives away from us. And certainly, I think that there probably will be artists and creative pursuits that do not involve computers in the future. I don't want to say that like we're going to take all of that away, but I just think that if you think about what was happening 100 years ago and how they thought that people were going to like have shoes with wings on them or going to like fly through the sky, I think that like we also can't quite imagine what 100 years in the future is going to look like for ourselves. But I think we're going to go either towards the apocalypse where we have like no technology and we're fighting over water rights, or we're going to be like way into kind of computers being relied on for everything.
we have a collection of science fiction films already played out the major probabilities, and maybe we can input that to ChatGPT and say, tell me which sequence is the most realistic in your
Oh, I don't know
predict.
if I want to know the answer. Goodness.
They promised us flying cars, and now we got Netflix.
I like that. I like that.
I went to my business school a few years ago. I went to study an MBA in Madrid, and the business school had a big law school section. And they hosted a very interesting conference, AI art conference. I subscribed immediately, and as alumni, I could just attend. So I went in and I basically sat among law students, and they were discussing the legal provisions and how we're going to regulate and this and that. Very interesting. And then someone, a business student, raised his hand and asked the question, like basically in a very common, easy to understand language. His question was, I have no art skill, I have no computer skill, but I want to make shitload of money with this program. How can I do it? It was super funny. Yeah, that's a totally business school thinking. And then they were talking about how you cannot copyright AI creation because, like artificial intelligence, like robots, or like an animal, or all class of animal before that, even Asian like me, are not considered human enough to make art to be called fine art. So they are not allowed to automatically, because copyright is it's a constitutional right, or you just have it. So when you create the work, you don't need to do anything. You already have it under protection. But with AI art, you cannot. So there are some potential issues. But then I actually found out a quick and easy and relatively cheap way to protect. That is to register a trademark. So you only need to pay the trademark fee. So because trademark can be created by whoever, whatever. My cat can make a print, or she just did on the table, and I can, take a photo of that and say that's my trademark. So the only thing is that if you want to register a community trademark in European Union, you would spend at least €1,000 So that's more than $1,000 in the application fee.
In the US, it's about, yeah, $250, $350.
Yeah, because here the community trademark is the trademark that covers all the European member states, so there are like 20 plus countries, and that's money. So people wouldn't want to spend that money because there is a solution, but they don't want to spend that money. So for me, there's main issue what I see. I don't want to put it in a negative way, but I do see greed in a way. Like people want to make a lot of money using an easy one-click program. People want to have the same rights as if an artist have created it. People want to profit from it, yet still being protected, to have exclusivity so other people not possible to profit from it the same way that I do. And it's just like, you can't have it all, right?
People always want a quick buck. And that's what they're looking for. You know, if there's a fast way to make money off of it, people want to be the early adapters who find the way to do that. Again, I think it's like natural human nature.
um,
Unfortunately.
yeah.
I think that what you find though, so as someone who's kind of gone through the trademarking process in the US, you have to actually be using it. So you have to be using it and you have to be using it for something. Like you have to be like putting the image on t-shirts and then you have to say, I'm using it to put on t-shirts. And it has to have like a name. And it's like it's not some process where you like pay $250 and like click a box and then like send in your money or something. And then it's like, I have this trademark and no one else can use it. It's like a kind of a pain in the butt. I don't really imagine that a lot of people are going to do it unless they come up with some sort of, unless AI comes up for them with something that is unbelievably marketable, which then it can't come up with something similar for someone else, which of course I think it could. And that's the other thing is that, I mean, at some point someone will probably try to do this and it'll be very interesting to see what the trademark, I think, bureau actually says, because they also get to decide, is this worth trademarking or is it not? Is it too kind of similar to all these other things? Is this commonly, like with a phrase, is it commonly used?
Yeah, there are a lot of controversy. For example, it's hot from Paris Hilton.
Some person will probably try to do it just for the PR.
I listened one word you used just 10, 20 minutes ago. You said someone curate the content, like an artist curate the content. So you think that when you use AI softwares, algorithms to generate something and choose something and then put things together this way, this artist is basically essentially a curator.
Well, the person who's selecting the art, yes, I think that that's essentially what they're doing. Because, you know, if you got like I had Lensa, like everyone else, create some images of me based on 10 selfies that I gave it, right? And I look at them and I can say, this one looks like me, this one doesn't, this is ridiculous, this one looks like me, this one doesn't, this one doesn't, this one doesn't. And I use that as an example to say I'm kind of like curating in a way the images that I approve of, right? And I'm saying, okay, there are two images that are acceptable out of this grouping of 10. And that's essentially is like what a curator is doing is it's selecting what it wants to show to a wider audience. And for the person who won the art competition out in Colorado, I think he looked at thousands. I think he had whatever program he was working with come up with thousands of images based on his one or multiple prompts that he gave it. And then he selected in the end three images. There's really no other way to describe it other than this person curated three images from 1,000 to submit to an art competition. And so, yes, that's kind of like that intermediary role that we as humans have is like a curatorial role.
Yes, in order to fully understand what is the scope of AI, what does it actually do, I created the thumbnail of this video using different AI apps, like this one you see here. And I realized one thing that is extremely time consuming and energy consuming, because when I ran the predictions or diffusion, I don't have the technical term for it, but basically I ask it to expand this image after I created the core image to fit the thumbnail 16 by 9, the proportion ratio. And then the computer would just go overheating. So it's using a lot of the RAM and it's using a lot of the energy. Like Bitcoin farming, it's using energy, right? So in many ways, it's rich person's game, because first you need to have a strong computer with I'm1, I'm1 Pro Max, this and that. You need to have the time, which is also same as a traditional human artist. You need to have the knowledge to pick the right image that best represent the story you're trying to tell. And likely you will need to use different programs, and you need to pay some, and you need to even hire some expert to help you train your own AI algorithm if a professional artist will likely want to do that if this person is selling the art. So finally, it's not so democratic. It's not like Linsa app everyone can use. And I actually downloaded Linsa just to have a look, and I realized that it's not free. So you need to have accessibility to resources. Otherwise, you won't be able to take advantage of this great piece of technology, like almost all technologies, but some are more accessible than others. Like the earlier technologies, like the windmill, water mill, and like simple things like that, like the Jenny machine that spins the yarn to make clothes faster. Those are more accessible, so it can be widely applicable to different parts of the world. But it seems that many AI apps, including Linsa, let's say, you need to pay. So do you think it will create more inequality among visual professionals, visual artists? Now I don't even know how to call those people. Should we call them artists, or should I?
I think not in the short term, hopefully. Its impact in the art world will probably not be seen for decades. AI will probably have a greater influence in other areas of our lives before it kind of like comes for the art world. The art world tends to kind of be like a lagging indicator as opposed to a leading indicator. So it seems like one of the first things that's coming for is like search, changing people, like how people retrieve information, for instance. I think though that you're right that there always is that kind of like gap when it comes to technology in terms of the haves and the have-nots, and just the ability to interact with these types of programs now and going forward, getting comfortable with them and learning how they work for children and for everyone. If you have these opportunities and others don't, it does create issues down the line, because we're not all having the same opportunities, and you don't know like the repercussions of that. So like what happens when some kids have been interacting with like art bots and chat bots and things like that at home, and then they're expected to use them at school, and other kids don't have the money because it costs like electricity and you need a computer with a certain amount of RAM, right? And then you go to school and you've never used them, right? It's the same thing kind of like with computers today. It's only adding additional complexity to our lives, alas.
Even like big artists, big names, they could hire ghost painters to paint in a team.
Yeah,
So
right.
instead, you just have AI, right? So
Well, now are they going to have AI come up with, I mean, like, for me, this feels like it's the end of a certain level of creativity, right? The artists don't even need to come up with like their own creative ideas. They have a computer that can do it.
right, but what is creativity anyway? Because people usually say human creativity, But I don't think creativity is unique to human. I think my cats are very creative to problem solving, and they could open the boxes and food. Even I keep them in a drawer.
Suitably motivated animals are always creative. And
Yeah.
I say that a bit like tongue in cheek in terms of like the creativity, but it's like if you think about the artists at the top have always had like the workers to kind of execute for them. So the labor power, right? But they always had to kind of come up with the ideas. And if we go back to the idea that that machine learning can come up with 10 different ways to position a woman in a cup of coffee on a canvas, that then a painter who doesn't have all these assistants can come up with, all of a sudden that's like a new sort of aid that someone can get without all of these extra laborers. And that other person can still have it potentially, but it's like all these other people can potentially take advantage of that too. But then there are all these other people who still can't. I don't know.
I wonder if Tinder has AI assistance. Because that would be good. Then the AI can pick who you mate, how you live your life, where you drive.
Well, so they definitely have algorithms. And then I think that there are all these questions about like, are there, chat bots and things like that that get slipped into all these different dating apps?
Yeah, our lives are already occupied by, or dominated, is a better word, by AI. So it's just now suddenly it touches creativity, which is a very small part, but then it's at heart. It's a sensitive point. Then everybody started to go panic and criticize. And you go to ArtStation, it was like no AI, no AI, the whole full screen for the whole night. It was
I'm
impressive.
hoping I'm hoping our lives aren't already dominated by AI, frankly. But maybe that's just what they want us to think. Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see where this video ends up on YouTube. Does it get sunk or does it get brought to the top of the channels, The algorithm and the AI. I mean, those are two different things, but we'll see.
I was thinking, just looking at what is going on and looking at the AI generated art, and I suddenly thought about, maybe the future trend will be all different art forms integrated or not, but they will have one thing in common. That is, they will be documentaries. They would be real people, real things, not a fictional character with six fingers on each hand, or weird eyes crossed, or crazy body composition. It will be a derivative from real life, so lifelike. So I was thinking, oh, maybe that is the next trend, and I was very excited to have found this new trend. Like, I'm gonna write it down. How can I call it? I was coming up with this word about describing this new trend, a movement, documentalism or and then I realized it has happened 100 and how many years ago? 20 years ago? Realism.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Do you think that would be the trend?
Well, I think what we are seeing is that realism and figurative art has definitely come back into style in the last, 5 to 10 years, moving away from abstract art. Although I must say, I'd be really curious to see what kind of abstract art a machine learning would create. Like, what do they think? What would appeal to humans from abstract art? I think that would be also fascinating. I don't know, it would just be very interesting to see how that was interpreted. Would it be appealing to us or not? And what would that look like?
Let's say if a digital artist, a new media artist, is using AI to generate certain artworks and they want to enter the fine art domain, the art world. As a gallerist, what do you think the difficulties they will face? I mean, what I want to say is the whole point is not because you can pick up a brush, you can be called a professional artist and be accepted. Not because you can do Procreate painting, you can be accepted. It goes a lot of other works and criteria behind. Let's remove the technical skill because usually that was required traditionally, but now not because of the AI or thanks to AI. As a gallerist, what do you think other things they must also, other qualities they must have as an artist?
If they want to have AI art in a gallery, is that what the question was?
What traditional artists would dream of, let's say being brought to big shows, attending important art fairs, being collected by important collectors, and eventually end up in a museum. The whole package.
Right, but for AI, right?
But this person, the only difference is didn't go to art school and doesn't know how to paint, therefore he could only use AI as a media, as a way to express.
I mean, so for me, this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of how I see AI being leveraged in the market. In a way, it has to find a way to push boundaries and or be marketable in terms of like getting celebrities involved or getting a known artist involved. I mean, if they can find a way to collaborate with known artists or celebrities, perhaps if they can find a way to be like the new, the first, the one, the only, perhaps, but it seems very unlikely. And maybe that's all gloom and doom, and most likely someone somewhere along the line is going to prove me wrong because it probably will happen because I see AI as like its own genre that can't be compared. Like it has to kind of exist in its own thing in itself. That we should not be comparing AI art with art made by human beings. That at some point it's going to have to just live on its own. But I don't think we're there yet. And I don't know what's going to help us to kind of like make that switch. It may be that some type of shop that's not a traditional art gallery. Art galleries tend to be very traditional. Even my own, where we have this model that's existed for like 50, 60 years, the kind of the white cube model, but a different type of model comes about that is the right space to exhibit AI art, a place that people who will appreciate AI art are going to come in, and that's not a traditional gallery. It's some other type of space. I think that that concept, though, of kind of like taking a portfolio, though, of images of AI art and going to gallery and being like, do you want to show these is probably not the right direction to go in for it. It's going to have to be something new and different and innovative to kind of pique people's curiosity. And if I knew what it was, I would do it because it would get a lot of people's attention.
Actually, when I was describing it, this artist, imaginary artist, and I realized I'm actually describing, no offense, an average artist, an artist who has an average skill set, average commonly accessible technique and media.
Mm. Hmm.
Like you can do it and I can do it and everybody can do it. Let's say iPhone photographer. I'm just saying
Hmm.
everybody has a phone, smartphone that can make photography. Therefore, you can make, art. So how are you going to excel to find your space in the art world by having average everything else? That is actually the question, right?
Sure. And what I tell people is that not art is not always meant to be monetized. Not all art belongs in a gallery and not all art belongs in a museum. And you can take amazing pictures and paint amazing things, and they may still only belong in your home with your friends. And unfortunately, that's kind of the way it is. But you can also try to find that out. You can talk to a gallerist and you can get people's opinions. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to understand that the answer may not be yes, because it can't be. There are just too many. Most human beings, I would say, have some sort of like, again, that creative spark, and we can't all be out there getting accolades in a commercial space or in a public space for something that we've created. We all deserve accolades, we all deserve love, we all deserve attention, but it's not necessarily all going to be for the same thing. I say that as someone who's running a gallery, but is not showing my own artwork there. I've made some interesting things myself. I have my own cool iPhone photos and have even thought to myself, maybe I should be a photographer. That was one of my dreams when I was younger. But even me, it's like I don't have what it takes to do it. And I know that about myself. It's just one of these things where, you know, I have my own work up around in places, but not in a gallery.
If it's not about the skill set anymore with iPhone photography or with AI art, how do you know that you don't have what it takes to be a famous artist? How do you know? I mean, you know because you went to a school and you're professional in the art world, but in general, how would one know?
Well, it is partially about the skill set. It's partially about the depth of, let's say, your catalog. So how much good work you have as well. Anyone can take like one blockbuster photo, right? It's about the consistency of what you're doing. It's about the message. It's about what you want to tell the world. It's about what you're trying to put out there. It's also about having the desire and the drive to do what it takes day after day, week after week, year after year to make it in an incredibly tough industry that's going to kind of chew you up and spit you out because it doesn't really care about who you are and what you're doing. It's the consistent marketing of yourself, it's the consistent putting yourself out there. It's that consistent kind of like getting rejected from things, but picking yourself up. It's like the advice I got of applying to 100 things every year, expecting to get 100 no's. It's being willing to do all of that with the work that you have, thinking that your work is good enough for all of that. And you got to really believe in your work.
But it's hard when you really believe in your work and then to be objective and see if you can make it at the same time, right? You have to believe in it, but then if you believe in it too much, you would just think it's the best art ever made. No?
You kind of get a sense though, because remember, you're not doing this in a vacuum, right? So you get a sense of like who's doing work that's similar to yours, what level they're at, how long they've been doing it, if your work is marketable or not. Are people buying work that's similar to yours? Where's their work showing? What are people buying? What is being collected? What is going into museum collections right now?
Not much digital, not much new media.
No, so like photography is really, if we go back to that, like kind of, I would say like iPhone photography, probably not very much. Uh, and and again, because everyone has that, everyone's kind of like, well, I have my own like fabulous vacation photos. I don't need your photo of the sunrise, you know? And so it's like you have these great sunrise photos, but it's like so does everybody else at this point. That's why it has to be like something really new, something innovative.
Or someone special, right? So basically, you market yourself as the next Kadaisha, Paris Hilton.
Yeah, but or even like well, market yourself as the next, I don't know, it's like you actually have to be that person. Or like yeah, if you can find a way to yeah, I mean, I can't say that there's not going to be another Paris Hilton out there. So yeah, of course. I guess like figure out what you want to do and see if you can make it stick. The world is, everyone's oyster in a way. So who am I to say that whoever's listening to this can't make it happen? Best of luck to you.
Yeah, niche market, I guess. The market will be more and more individualist, and everybody would have their own private collection of um, AI art and AI pornography, I guess, as well.
Perhaps, if you say so. I don't know what you guys are doing over there at Very Private Gallery, but you know.
Well. Talking about what we do, we have exclusive content on our Patreon site, and we have a monthly virtual gathering as well as personal coaching. So if you want to check out our Patreon page, here is a link in the description below. And also, I would like to give a big shout out to our lovely patrons. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
Sure, I think your cat is messing up your computer screen over there, by the way.
Yeah, they're
So,
hungry. That's why I'll give them food, and then they will be quiet. So, last question to you. What is your advice to young artists who are starting out today in this very uncertain world? How to best deal with the situation to thrive in the art market, in the art world? I know art market and art world are different, but in general, to find success.
finding their way forward. I would say honor your instincts. Try to figure out what you want to communicate to the world. Because we are all so unique, most likely your message, if you can figure out what that unique message is and your unique experience that you have that you can share, that's going to be something valuable. Figuring out how to share that in a way will give you something, a good starting point. And try not to let the technology be a distraction from what you can create. You don't need all of these additional supports to just start making art. If you want to be an artist, just keep making things and see what happens.
Very well said. Oh, beautiful.
Well, thank you.
So every 2 months, we will talk about a subject like this for an hour and publish on this channel. So for those of you who liked this talk, make sure to hit the subscription button and turn on the little bell so the algorithm knows that you love us. And we will keep making videos like this.
Thank you. Pop over to Beacon Gallery. Make sure to follow us on Instagram as well.
I'll put the links in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.
All right. Bye.
Bye.